Hi, I'm Jim. Welcome to the Unbound Performance Podcast, where we explore the world of sports and performance mindset training.
And I'm Caroline. Each week we talk about the strategies, habits, and mental framework that help us to excel. Let's get into today's episode. Rory's Grand Slam.
Rory's Grand Slam, career Grand Slam. Yep. I don't play golf.
Me either.
But I do study the heck out of golf because of
that sport specifically.
It is like mentally so. I mean, whatever. There's a huge mental component to every sport.
Yeah.
But in golf, there's so much time to think, and I'm just amazed that people can successfully manage that, navigate that, especially at these high levels. So, that brings us to this past weekend where Rory McIlroy won his first Masters after 14 years of trying. And that was the capstone for now the sixth person to win a career Grand Slam. But he hadn't won a major since 2014.
I think I knew that.
And he's been trying to, like in 2011, he had a pretty epic fail where he was up 4 strokes on the last day and lost right up through last year's U.S. Open, where he had a pretty
epic sore loser too sometimes. But
which, it's such a, I don't know, everyone watching, the amount of pressure you have to deal with without, it's not like you can go blow off, like I'm just like you're playing football and you just crush somebody or fire off really fast and explode, and everything is super controlled, and the slightest bit of like mental faltering has ramifications physically, so I'm just so amazed that anyone is capable of performing like that.
Well, you see in those, you looked at DeChambeau that day,
yeah,
you can go the other way real quick too. You can keep it together really well, or you can just totally implode. I'm not saying it's a total implosion for them. You've seen worse, but you can see that happen where you can see just how much. There are certainly plenty of, as my husband and I were talking about, because we've had the debate of, is golf a sport? And I wholeheartedly believe that it is.
Yeah.
Now, his argument was like, well, you could be non-athletic and play golf. Okay, sure, but it's still a sport. But
maybe non-athletic in the sense that you don't have to jump high or something.
Right.
But,
and I think through this conversation, I think you realize that that's kind of not the measurement of what a sport is. But my argument to him was like, the precision required in golf, physically, period, and to be consistently, mentally on your game the whole time. And I was watching too as he was doing his little walk of high fives at the end, which where are they walking to? Where the walk is so long. You see where they start, where they end up, and I'm like, what is this zigzag of people they walk through? Anyway, you're watching that, and I think golf is the one sport where like almost no matter who wins, everyone is pumped. I think everyone has their favorite golfer, but rarely is someone like, oh, my guy's not in the finals, I'm getting out of here. Like everyone watches to the end.
Yeah, they want to watch history.
High five. Yes. Yeah. And I think too, for me, I feel like that would almost add another level of like, it's not just my people that are here rooting for me, but like no matter what, everyone in the end is going to be not emotionally dependent on me winning, but have some sort of feel like they had some skin in the game almost. And it's such a, there's no, I think even more so than tennis is like a one-man sport. Like, you got to be on.
You do have a caddy in golf who's right out there with you. We don't really have anything like that in tennis.
Maybe it's the slow speed of golf versus the
it takes,
speed of tennis. To me, it feels different to be sort of by yourself.
Now, tennis can take a while and be really physically exhausting, but McIlroy teed off at like 2:30 on Sunday and finished at 7?
Yeah, probably almost 7.
That's a lot of time to have to keep it between the rails. Yeah. And I listened to his press conference afterwards, some interviews. I just found the whole situation extremely compelling. Yeah. Like as soon as I heard that he'd had really good days Friday and Saturday and he was in position, I was like, all right, I'm going to watch this. And knowing what he was dealing with. I'm not a super huge golf fan, but I'm aware, and so trying to do something that's nearly unequivocal. 5 other people have done it, have this career Grand Slam thing going, but he was really honest about like how nervous he was that morning and couldn't really eat much, had to force food down, and then how nervous he was on the first tee. He double bogeys the first hole right out of the gate, but he did immediately go to, I can't remember the guy's name, but who, not in very recent history, had double bogeyed in kind of the same situation, wound up winning. So he kind of clung to that, and then
It's still possible.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he is the first to win the Masters with 4 double bogeys over the course of the tournament, which including 2 on the last day.
I guess the 2 on the last day is the
Yeah.
real impressive feat there.
It's a big one. But it speaks to his resilience, which, I mean, that's something like the U.S. Open, for example, is a different place every year. The Masters is in the same place every year, so he gets to see like the same place.
Yep.
Like, oh, there's where I blew it in 2011. You know,
That's true.
all this stuff is, you have to deal with it. And then he was paired on Sunday with the same guy he was paired with in the Open last year, where he collapsed and that guy won. So
I don't think they really like each other either.
oh yeah, I don't know.
I was when they
have no
first
idea.
when they went out to tee off at the first hole that day. I didn't rewind to hear it, but the announcer said something like, "And you'll see that these two have not even greeted each other, like not even eye contact." And I was like, "Oh,
Interesting.
which,
Wow.
which again, I mean,
Even more drama.
right.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, well, and there's way more drama that's gone on in Rory's life in the last year that's been all over the news as it is. Like, you just think about the things that compound on a sport that's already mentally straining as hell, physically as well, and then you add all the other pressures of, and I think
Just public life.
I mean, public life for anybody is so got to be miserable. But on when you said the start off with the double bogey, it's like, instead of being like, oh crap, this could really go downhill, he took the, well, someone else has done it.
Yep.
Like, that's the quick shift of knowing how to do that immediately, and not 3 holes later, oh yeah, I remember that one guy. Like,
Well, instead of
being
like,
able to have
oh,
that.
here I go again.
Right.
You know.
Yep. Exactly.
Yep. Well, I know. I read an article in The Athletic where he mentioned that he had, like Bob Rotello, who's a famous sports psychologist, works with a lot of golfers. Highly recommend his books. He was there, and Rory had been talking to him throughout the tournament, and
He works with him regularly, or
he works with a lot of people regularly, but I know he purposely, like Rory McIlroy, was connecting with him during the week. And, you know, he talked afterwards. Well, one, I thought this was very interesting in the interview he did with Marty Smith for ESPN. Marty Smith asked him, you said that in the past that you would not be fulfilled if you never won the Masters. And he admitted that I am defined by my golf. And as much as you have all these other meaningful things in your life, that is the thing. Like, we talk about that stuff all the time. Don't be defined by your sport or business or whatever. In reality, that is nearly impossible to do. And especially at that level where pretty much every
your world
thing in your life, I mean, for decades has been poured into.
Well, it's not even just your fame as a golf. Well, I mean, it is, but like, he can't go to a restaurant and not be Rory McIlroy, the golfer.
Well,
he can't go to the grocery store and not be like no one.
That's how everyone knows him.
Exactly. It's not, no one detaches. I mean, I'm sure a couple people really close to him, but most people don't ever detach that. And so it's got to be really hard for him to detach that as well when it's constantly.
And it's something you've pursued. I mean,
from
whatever, if you remember seeing Tiger Woods swing a golf club when he was like 3 or 4, you know, there's video of Rory like as a 7-year-old or something. And it's just, you know, I remember reading Novak Djokovic. He was 7 years old. He'd made like a fake Wimbledon trophy, and he was standing posing in the mirror as a 7-year-old. Like, so they've been chasing this stuff their entire lives with everything they've got. And so to tell, like, it's easy for me not to be, or easier to not let like coaching success define me. It wasn't
your lifelong dream.
No, and that was true. I was kind of shocked that I wound up being a volleyball coach in the first place. But someone like that, with the world watching every year, for someone like us to say, don't let it define you. Easy for you to say. Not a now, I think you have to find a way to battle through that and keep things in perspective.
There's merit in at least recognizing that you see that your identity is in that, and you maybe can't totally separate it, but trying to head that direction.
And I know, like, you know, we talk about the Andre Agassi example all the time, where he kind of repurposed his tennis career and life post meltdown and drug rehab, and wound up being even more successful than he was before that happened. But it is a war to be able I don't know, you have to wage it, but to suggest that, well, journal a little bit more and, repurpose, like, no, that is the circumstances are so overwhelming daily. Like you just said, there is no escape. And for 14 years, there's no escaping the fact that, like, you haven't won a Masters and have blown a couple,
The winning pressure aside, too, like, golf is one of those sports where it's not like you just, like, earn a salary, and if you win, you get a little extra on top. It's like you either win and you support your family or you don't. Now, if you're big enough, you've got other sources of income, brand deals and things like that, but, like, the really big money is in winning, period.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's the pride of winning that. It's all the time you put in, but it's also I want to support my family, and we've been living at this level, or we achieve these things, and it's not just about the trophy at the end.
Well, there's so much
bigger
pressure. Like John Feinstein wrote a book, Tales from Q School, about the pressure these guys face trying to qualify for the tour. And you talk about, like, feed your family or don't feed your family.
Yeah.
And there's huge pressure.
Yeah.
And you can talk all you want about how, well, I'm not defined by my golf. Well, this is real right here. Like, you're either a professional golfer and you can do that and take care of your family, or you got to go be a pro somewhere and struggle. So I think key to managing that is trying to, at least in the moment, be free of it. And McIlroy talked about what he was attempting to accomplish on that last day, where I just want to be present right here, take a good shot right here, and then we go to the next shot, take a good shot here.
One little bit at a time.
Yeah, one shot at a time, cliche, but it's true. I know he was asked by Marty Smith, talked about, and he mentioned it in the article in The Athletic too, I was just trying to stay in this bubble. And Marty Smith asked him at some point on the back nine, did you feel like the bubble was going to burst? Because I think it did burst, double bogeyed, I think on 13. And he was up 5, and all of a sudden, boom, he's tied, and he could lose. And talk about something you live with, like, forever if you don't win one. And that's where it's easy for someone to look and say, shouldn't define you. No, there is no escaping that. Like Greg Norman, he still has to deal with that kind of stuff. And
when you dedicate your life to something and you don't get to that final goal or get the trophy or win the Masters, as much as you shouldn't, it's hard not to wonder, what if, or wish I had. And I think that makes it hard too, also you see people, I think golf especially, because you can play for such a long time, you see a lot of people who just won't ever quit because they're still chasing it and they're hoping they're going to get it. And that's
which is, I admire that.
Sure. But is it likely that it's going to happen and you're just still chugging along and beating yourself for it?
Good question.
What's that Netflix special, Full Swing? Is that what it's called?
Right.
For golfers?
Yeah.
I think it was in the first season. A younger guy, Wyndham Clark, I think is his name, was really struggling with his play. I think I mentioned this briefly in another episode, but really, really having a hard time and couldn't figure out. Kept trying to see a swing coach and work on things with his caddy, and everyone kept saying you might want to meet with a sports psychologist, and he was really, really resistant to doing that. And so as the episode progresses, he ends up meeting with this woman, and it changes his life, changes his game. And he talks about, we didn't talk about golf. We weren't talking about my swing or how hard I could hit the ball or reading the greens. It was completely unrelated. And he was saying how almost immediately after working with her, he saw improvements and was really able to get in to feeling like he had control over those things that once felt completely out of control and were making him spiral downward, both mentally and physically.
Yeah, it's I think apart from that kind of training, McIlroy said, he was asking himself, am I going to let it slip away again? But he had a way to combat that, that I think if he'd have just been left to his own devices and leaving those thoughts to chance, he probably would have been in real trouble. Yeah. So, we say this all the time, it's training like any other kind of training, but ignoring that aspect of it makes no sense to me.
Well, you would never leave a physical game to chance. You wouldn't just show up for your first match of your life and I've watched a lot, I think it'll figure it out. It's not going to work. So why leave any aspect of your game and your performance?
And now it's more and more like it. I mean, it used to not be very prevalent at all, even in your
What, for athletes that work
international
with
level.
someone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's, I mean, to me, it's still
Not prevalent enough.
right. I think every
You'd
time
like to
I
think every
read an
professional athlete
article,
should have someone.
yeah, oh, for sure. Well, heck, I think
Everyone.
team, I mean, anybody who wants to be as good as they can be at something, and I don't care if it's sports or anything else, having someone talk to you about how you can maximize your performance, I think is a great piece of advice.
Yeah.
And well, I remember how nervous and nauseous I was before state championship matches in volleyball, and I wasn't even playing, so I didn't have to go perform per se.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine what it feels like to walk up to the first tee at Augusta with a 2-stroke lead. I said, all right, here you go. When you're ready to go vomit in the bushes.
Right.
And you still have to play well. And so learning how to manage all of that takes time and work.
And even down to the little thing of him, he said he could hardly eat, he had to force food down that morning. Like, while that's a physical thing he needs to do, like, he knows he won't be physically sharp and therefore mentally sharp if he doesn't make himself eat. If you just skip breakfast, I mean, I think there are so many little things that make up the big picture of the physical game and the mental game. And the having breakfast before a meal is not just for the physical. Like, if your body on all cylinders is not firing, like, your stamina and your ability to then, rein the horses in when it's time to use those mental skills is going to be more of a challenge.
And I don't know, I think it's interesting that, before there was a little bit of a explosion of popularity when it comes to sports psychology, you'd read about some of these players in years past. Like, I remember reading Byron Nelson, where he had this stretch where he won the most tournaments in a calendar year ever, still remains unbroken. I think it was 18 in 1 year. It's insane. 11 in a row. One of the things he said, he never looked at the leaderboard. He didn't know who won until he was in the clubhouse signing his scorecard, which takes incredible will. But it also, if you can do it, very freeing. And you talk about it lets you be in the moment and be present on just this swing and all that. And I remember hearing McIlroy talk about, after 13, I had to look at the leaderboard. I had to see what Justin Rose is doing. And I mean, I get it. That's why I don't know how helpful that is. Like, oh crap, they're coming.
Probably not helpful, but
I get why you
information
want to do it for sure. But it was the whole thing, and then to see his reaction when he won. Oh, he crushed the playoff hole. Like,
well, Rose did that.
Talk about
who's in the finals with, right? Who's the guy?
Yeah, Justin Rose. Yeah,
hit that shot, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then Rory just one-ups him, and I was like, oh god. But then that's what makes that, especially Sunday at the Masters, really fun. But yeah, I mean, couldn't have done that any better.
Well, what it took to be able to reset and then go perform in that playoff hole, I just thought it was amazing. And
when to see the person who tees off before you hit a really great
shot. Hit a really good shot, yeah.
And you have to be like, wow, I need to do the same or better. I mean, just like the number of like angles of pressure on the situation. Unlimited.
And it's so easy to start thinking unproductively, and instead he just nails it. I just thought it was fascinating. And then his reaction after he won.
Well, the immediate outburst of the physical, like, writhing in tears is also like, I know for me, because I'm a crier, but like I think that is all that stuff you've been holding in and keeping together that whole time, not just on Sunday, but the whole
14 years. Yep.
Yeah, 14 years, let alone just the tournament itself, but all of those things you've been keeping together and keeping it together, and you're still on the right path, and finally, it's just like releases everything. I think shows just how much restraint that required.
Yeah, because he'd talk about, like, every year I would come back, try to have a good mindset and
and he's had some close losses too. Like, it's not like he's been real far behind. This is the first.
I know at one point, I can't remember the exact statistic, but he had all these top 10 finishes without winning. It was like a record in that time. It's like, I think it was 6 years. He had X number of top 10 finishes without winning. And that's good from the bank account standpoint, but I'm sure that's not a record he wanted to set.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was fascinating to watch. I really admired his competitive spirit and courage and will. That was just really something to watch. I loved watching it.
Yeah, it's admirable. I think golf in general is something that didn't always appreciate when I was younger, because it seemed like a boring, slow sport. But once you get to understand it better, and to understand that it's not just hitting the ball in the hole. Like, even if if you've never swung a golf club, okay, but if you've ever swung it one time, if you had a Top Golf, you realize just how challenging it is to hit anything. You told your Top Golf story with the team before, like
Right.
you know just how challenging it is to at its most amateur novice level. But I mean, it takes, and that was my argument with my husband about like, is it a sport or not? Was like that at one point the announcer was saying something. And this is where my golf knowledge goes out the door. But she was like, he needs to hit this ball right at 8 o'clock on the club face, and like to think about it that way, not just like hit it at the right angle or hit it towards the front or the back. Like he needs to hit it at 8 o'clock on the club face. It's just one of those, like, the precision it requires to know what to do with the club, let alone to make your body do what it needs to do and keep this together at the same time is, I mean,
and not think technical thoughts about how we're going to hit this.
Yeah, do this most
8 o'clock.
technical thing ever without thinking technically.
Yep. Yeah, it's
it was impressive. I was humbled when I watched the end of that, and I was like, this is my like.
Yeah, it was fascinating. But I mean, I remember the first time I ever tried to play golf was a par 3. I was 19, and I thought it was like, this is going to be easy.
Yeah, I can do it. What's wrong with my
balls? Well, and it just sits there.
Yeah.
Like it's not like baseball, And so my utter inability to have any idea where that ball was going
in the 18th hole or something like that.
Yeah, we didn't have to relive that. But the 9th, there was a par 3. Yeah, so you played 9 twice. But yeah, it was really admirable reaction to all that. But that's where, like, anybody who thinks this is just a game or something, to be able to make that little ball go where you want it to go, and then, okay, your first shot didn't exactly go where you wanted to go, so then you're right back at it. All right, well, I'm going to make this one go where I want it to go.
Those, especially those really big, like the major tournaments.
Oh,
Jeff, my husband put it well. It's like trying to hit a golf ball on those greens is like putting on a garage floor, is the way you put it. It's like, it's not the course you go play for free because it's a public place. You can pay $20 to go play. Like the way that they've got those greens, the ball is a roll. Like you have to.
Yep.
I mean, it's
well, and the hazards. I mean, you look at some of those greens are surrounded by bunkers and lakes,
and people,
and people. So the ability to perform at a consistently high level under those stresses, it's rare, and it really takes. Oh yeah, and it really takes commitment and work and commitment to the process of becoming. There's that word again. I used it in a while. So, but yeah, that was unforgettable for sure.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Unbound Performance Podcast.
Your support helps us continue to build our community. If you're enjoying this content, please like, subscribe, and share.